Analyzing biblical accounts of the origins of the European people requires studying old tales and family trees. Biblically speaking, the lineage of European ancestors can be traced back mostly to the offspring of Noah's son, Japheth. An important source is found in Genesis chapter 10, verses 2 to 5, where the sons of Japheth are listed as Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. Gomer is identified as one of Japheth's sons. While Genesis 10 does not go into great depth regarding Gomer's exact descendants, certain historical interpretations link Gomer to northern tribes. Some scholars hypothesize links to prehistoric Celtic or Cimmerian peoples, although the details are still hypothetical because of the few scriptural sources. Gomer is linked to tribes in the north according to some historical accounts, implying a link to prehistoric Celtic peoples. Based on language and cultural similarities, Gomer's descendants are identified as a part of Celtic tribes. Cimmerian peoples. The Cimmerians were an ancient people who resided in the northern Black Sea regions. This is another hypothetical association. Historical accounts like Herodotus mention the Cimmerians, and some researchers suggest that Gomer and the Cimmerian tribes were connected by geography. Jewish historian Flavius Josephus names Gomer as the Galatians' ancestor, a Celtic group known as the Galatians, relocated to Asia Minor, which is now Turkey. This interpretation is consistent with Gomer's connection with Celtic tribes. Gomer is also associated with the Germanic peoples according to certain interpretations found in this literature. Even though it's a less common viewpoint, it captures the range of perspectives about Gomer's lineage. Recognizing that these historical interpretations are speculative is crucial. The Bible doesn't say much about Gomer's lineage. Therefore, many scholarly interpretations can be made. There is still disagreement around the relationship of Gomer with particular historic tribes or peoples, and researchers are still looking into these ties inside the context of biblical and historical studies too. Magog, another son of Japheth. Magog is often linked to areas north of the Black Sea. Particularly, Magog is discussed in an apocalyptic context in Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 2 and chapter 39 verse 6. These texts foretell a battle between Gog and Magog in the future, though interpretations of this fight are mixed. The precise location of Magog in this particular circumstance remains a point of dispute among scholars. Areas north of the Black Sea are frequently linked to Magog. This interpretation is based on the historical background of Ezekiel, in which the prophet speaks to a union of northern nations, among them Magog. Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 15. Josephus. In his work Antiquities of the Jews, the Jewish historian Flavius Josephus links Magog to the Scythians, a nomadic race who populated the Eurasian grasslands to the north of the Black Cephala. This connection fits the geographical setting that Ezekiel mentions. Magog has been linked to several people and places throughout history, including regions of Eastern Europe and Central Asia. Nevertheless, there is frequently insufficient historical or archaeological support for these ideas. Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 39, Gog of Magog is the leader of a future invasion described in Ezekiel's apocalyptic prophecies. These passages are interpreted differently by scholars. Some see them as symbolic accounts of end of the world, origins of the European people, according to the Bible's precise identification of Magog in this situation. The biblical references to Magog found in Genesis and Ezekiel lay the foundation for arguments on its possible location. The historical perspective is provided by the relationship with areas north of the Black Sea, especially in the context of Josephus's account of the Scythians. However, the apocalyptic context in Ezekiel complicates matters, giving rise to differing scholarly views regarding the significance of these predictions and the identification of Magog in a future setting. Madai. Japheth's son Madai is frequently connected to the Medes, an ancient Iranian people, in historical contexts. The fact that Madai is mentioned in several biblical chapters alongside Javan, Tubal, and Meshech serves as further evidence of this link. Taking into account the larger historical backdrop of the ancient Near East serves to further support Madai's link to the Medes. Together with the Persians, the Medes are recognized as the foundation of the later Persian Empire. Connection to the Medes. Madai is frequently connected to the Medes, a prehistoric Iranian people. This link is based on language and historical investigations, as well as taking Madai's place within the larger framework of biblical genealogy. Jeremiah chapter 51 verse 11 refers to the kingdom of the Medes, emphasizing the Medes' importance in both historical and geopolitical contexts. Even though it doesn't mention Madai specifically, specifically. It helps us comprehend the Medes in biblical context. Isaiah chapter 13 verse 17. The Medes are mentioned in this verse as a part of a prophecy against Babylon. The Medes' historical significance in the area is supported by this reference to them. The passage Ezekiel chapter 27 verse 13 refers to the wine of Helbon and wool of the lambs from the region of Madai. The use of the term in a geographical setting is reflected. Herodotus, known as the father of history, the Greek historian, Herodotus gives historical tales of the Medes in his book, Histories. His writings support the biblical connection between Madai and the Medes, emphasizing the Medes' significance in the ancient Near East. Archaeological evidence. Additional proof of the historical presence of this ancient Iranian people comes from archaeological discoveries in the area traditionally connected to the Medes. Javan, the Ionian Greeks, are linked to Javan. One of the sons of Japheth, Javan, is mentioned in Genesis chapter 10 verse 4, suggesting a link to Greek culture. Javan ancestors are frequently associated with the Greek-speaking peoples who were instrumental in forming the Mediterranean's cultural and historical environment. Isaiah chapter 66 verse 19. Javan is addressed in relation to far-off nations that will see the Lord's glory in this verse. It illustrates the word Javan's usage in a wider geographic context. In Ezekiel chapter 27 verse 1, Javan is mentioned among the countries that support Tyre's trade. It emphasizes Javanese ties to the old Mediterranean marine trade. Greek civilization. Historical accounts of ancient Greek civilization are consistent with the Javan people's affiliation with the Ionian Greeks, a significant Greek cultural group recognized for its contributions to literature, philosophy, and art was the Ionian Greeks. The epic poems Iliad and Odyssey by the ancient Greek poet Homer offer insights into the landscape and way of life of the Ionian Greeks. Although they don't specifically mention Javan, they provide information on the Greek world's historical background. Tubal and Meshech. Genesis chapter 10 verse 2 lists Tubal and Meshech as sons of Japheth. There are regions in what is now modern-day Turkey associated with these names. Furthermore, Tubal and Meshech are mentioned in Ezekiel chapter 38, verses 2 to 3 in relation to the Gog and Magog prophecy. These names are introduced in an apocalyptic context by their appearance in Ezekiel's prophecy, which adds to the debate regarding Gog and Magog's identity. Because of the numerous historical and geographical changes over the ages, pinpointing these locations is still difficult. A coalition of nations led by Gog, Magog, Tubal, and Meshech is described as approaching Israel in Ezekiel chapter 38, verses 2 to 3. Ezekiel 27 verse 13. In this verse, Tubal and Meshech are included among the nations that contributed to Tyre's trade. Although it doesn't give precise geographic information, it illustrates how these names are used in a wider sense. Ezekiel chapter 32 verse 26. This verse adds to the biblical usage of Tubal and Meshech in a variety of contexts by referring to the countries in the afterlife. Josephus. In his book Antiquities of the Jews, Jewish historian Flavius Josephus makes connections between the Tubal and Iberians and Meshech and the Cappadocians, two groups that lived in the Asia Minor region. Some scholars have cited old maps and inscriptions to bolster the Meshech and Tubal identities with regions in Asia Minor. Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 39. Tubal and Meshech are listed as members of the alliance that Gog of Magog will lead in a future assault, according to apocalyptic passages in Ezekiel. Tiras. According to several historical accounts, Tiras, the last son of Japheth, mentioned in Genesis chapter 10 verse 2, was allied with the Thracians. The Thracians added to the broad structure of prehistoric European civilizations by occupying areas of Southeast Europe. The attempt to establish a connection between biblical genealogies and actual peoples includes the connection between Tiras and the Thracians. Association with the Thracians. According to some historical accounts, Tiras was formerly allied with the Thracians. The Thracians lived in sections of what are now Bulgaria, Greece, and Turkey in Southeast Europe. Josephus, Flavius. Josephus supports the historical connection between Tiras and the Thracians in Antiquities of the Jews, where he draws a connection between Tiras and the ancient people. Several historical maps and texts from antiquity also show Tiras as being connected to areas where the Thracians lived. Thracian civilization. Known for their unique culture and towns in Southeast Europe, the Thracians were an ancient Indo-European people. Archaeological discoveries and old manuscripts attest to their historical presence in the Balkans. Herodotus. The Greek historian provided his information about the territory and customs of the Thracians in his writings. Even though he doesn't mention Tiras by name, his works add to the Thracian civilization's larger historical backdrop. Moreover, the descendants of Ham another son of Noah, are mentioned in Genesis 10 verse 6. According to certain historical interpretations, Cush corresponds to portions of Africa, Mizraim to Egypt, Put to areas of North Africa, and Canaan to the country that would become Israel. The biblical story weaves through the lines of Japheth's descendants' genealogies to trace the possible ancestry of the European people. The ancient names Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras provide us hints about the complex mosaic of cultures that may have formed the basis for Europe's rich past, much like when we untangle historical threads. Finding your way through these genealogies is like finding hidden treasures of historical hints. We are invited into a universe where biblical stories coexist with the birth of ancient civilizations by Gomer's connections to northern tribes, Magog's strange presence north of the Black Sea, Madai's dance with the Medes, and Javan's connection to the Ionian Greeks. However, Genesis is not the end of the story. Through the prophetic visions of Ezekiel, we are pushed into an apocalyptic scenario where Tubal and Meshech appear, giving their historical identities further richness. Do these names have a deeper symbolic meaning in the Gog and Magog story that is gradually being revealed, or are they simply echoes of far-off places in contemporary Turkey? Then there's Tiras, the mysterious son of Japheth connected to the Thracians, who invites us to see the regions of Southeast Europe where myth and history collide. Let's explore this intellectual adventure with an understanding of the intricacies, realizing that history is a dynamic story created by the voices of individuals who attempt to solve its riddles. The story of the Bible, with its many levels of interpretation and historical names, entices us to go beyond the pages and establishes a closer bond with the history of humanity and the origins of the European peoples. That's all for today. Please like and subscribe to the channel so that you can get more amazing videos like this. Continue to bask in God's love. See you next time.